This is Becky, and we're with a couple of these read, and we just do all kinds of things.
We do, because we also write. And this is my printed out manuscript for my sequel that I'm contracted to write with Rising Action Publishing. And it is, of course, the same Chase Harlem investigator novel, only the second adventure. And a few author's tips today. So what I do after I've completed a novel, first of all, I try to take time away from it, even if it's just a couple of weeks, so that it's not as fresh on my mind. So when I go back to reread it, I'm like, oh, I did that. And either that's a good thing or a bad thing. It really depends. So I also have Becky read over it before I do.
And I did.
Yes, and she did, which I know seems a little backwards to have your beta reader read over it before you read over it. But I do that because, again, it gives me a little bit of a break and it gives me a different perspective. So once we discuss it, that's when I do my read through.
Right. And I found it to be very intense.
It is. We ramped up the intensity.
Chase Harlem. You know, I love the original book. Okay, and I read the original book. I'm not sure how many times over a 2 or 2.5 year period.
Right.
And it was constantly changing. Okay, you know, through edits and different things. And then I read the outline for 2 and 3, and then I read this, and it was much more intense. And I will just tell you, from the third outline, I felt that even in outline form, the third book is gonna be like, wow. Just because of things that really happen in it just through the outline. But this was much more intense than the first one. It was great. I mean, I read it in, you know, like
in a day.
Yeah, basically a day. I read the whole thing. I started like one afternoon and then finished it up the next afternoon, you know, in between taking care of kids and running around doing other things. But it was awesome. It was really good. So,
and after she read it, I got her approval and also her line edits. I went through, fixed those things, and then printed out my own copy. And what I do is I read every page out loud to my husband. And part of it is because I write very dialogue heavy. I started out as a playwright, so my dialogue is very, like, it is the way I want those characters to speak, and you gain a lot of the story from the dialogue. So if it sounds broken,
it's supposed to be that
way. Yeah, it's supposed to be that way. So I read it out loud to make sure I haven't made any mistakes with dialogue, read it to him, and he'll also point out plausibility issues, or like, she shouldn't be holding the gun that way, she should be holding it this way, things like that as we go. And anytime something's not linear, he points it out.
Well, I'm going to say this too. I laughed out loud in this book, and I cried in this book, and I got mad in this book, and I had some of those sweet moments in this book. And I went, and you know, Wayne does, my husband, he doesn't read a lot, but I told him, I said, I want to read you chapter 1. And so I read him chapter 1, and he just belly laughed in some of the places. I mean, he was just like,
which is good, because he's a detective, and it's
yes, he's a former detective. So he, but he really liked it. So I think if he really likes it, that's saying a lot.
I was reading through it last night out loud to my husband, and he starts laughing at one point, and I thought he was looking at something on his phone, so I just stopped. I'm like, what are you laughing at? And he's like, I'm laughing at Chase. She's funny. She's funny. I'm like,
she is funny.
Okay.
And
well, that's fine then.
Yeah, that's good. So it was really good. So I'm really looking forward to your publisher getting it, because I think she really liked Chase Harlem. I think she's just absolutely going to love this one.
Well, we have, as sequels need to do, in my opinion, we have ramped up the action. It's a much more difficult case for her to solve, and a little more violent case. But what I do when I read out loud to my husband, I keep a list of changes. Obviously, I make line edits, like if it's a simple, I need a question mark here instead of a period, I write that in. but I also go through a list of changes I want to make. I make sure to have the chapter, page number, and what exactly I'm looking at, because since towards the end of writing this, I got some edits from my publisher. Some of the things in book 1 has changed, and that's going to have to go into book 2. So I do all of this as I read through, and then I'm able to sit down and kind of establish here are the things that need to be changed.
Right.
And if there's any big structural edits, sometimes the sticky notes come out, sometimes the whiteboard comes out, things like that. So far, haven't encountered that with this one, but it's probably coming. So if you are a writer and you are looking for good editing tips, those are mine. That's what I do. But understand also that every writer edits differently.
That's right.
I know people who will read their whole manuscript backwards. I kind of do that because when I go back through, I go backwards to put in any of the edits that I've written in the manuscript so that the page numbers don't throw me off.
Oh, I see. I got you.
But, you know, I know people who do that. I'm also, for those of you writers who write mysteries and thrillers or horror, I'm part of Sisters in Crime, which is not just for the sisters, it's also for the misters, but it is a group of writers of mysteries, crime novels, and things like that. And I'm taking an editing class with them. So any tips I get out of that, I will be happy to share here as well, just because you want to be able to edit well if this is going to be your career.
That's right.
So looking forward to that, and I will be coming back with more tips. Until then, guys, keep writing. Best of luck to you. Bye, guys.
Bye.